Hey, Celtics Nation. We need to talk about what just happened on the court because honestly, it was a roller coaster that started off promising but ended up leaving way too many questions unanswered. The first half looked great on paper. 21 points in the first quarter, 15 in the second, and it seemed like the team was executing well, moving the ball, hitting shots, and generally looking in rhythm. But then the third quarter hit, and everything fell apart in a way that's almost hard to comprehend. 38 points allowed in a single quarter is absolutely inexcusable at this level. You cannot allow a team like the Jazz to shoot the way they did, 13 of 18 in the third quarter alone, hitting threes and free throws, dominating on the glass, and suddenly all the good work from the first half is erased. What's frustrating is that this game wasn't lost due to a lack of effort in the first quarter, because Boston came out sharp and aggressive. It's about losing the margins that matter most over the course of the game. The Celtics were out-rebounded, 12-4 on a key stretch, and the Jazz had twice as many assists in critical moments, 8 to Boston's 4. Turnovers are another glaring issue. Forcing turnovers should give the team an advantage in points off turnovers, but the Celtics are consistently falling short there. 5 turnovers by the Jazz only translated into 5 points for Boston. 5 turnovers should yield 8 to 10 points at least, and this inefficiency is a recurring problem. Meanwhile, the Celtics committed 10 turnovers themselves and allowed 16 points. It's almost a mirror of the issue, generating opportunities but failing to maximize them. That's execution, plain and simple, and it's a problem that goes beyond one game. Defensively, the effort was inconsistent, and rebounding remains a glaring weakness. Even though Boston technically won the second chance points battle, 19-13, they gave up 16 second chance attempts. The Jazz rebounded over 40% of their misses, which puts the defensive rebounding percentage for Boston at a level that is frankly unacceptable. When you allow that many offensive rebounds, you give your opponent extra possessions, and those possessions translate into points that change games. A team with Boston's talent should not be in a position where defensive lapses and rebounding failures cost them a game outright. The mistakes on the court were compounded by ill-timed fouls and poor positioning on critical plays. Players like Nimishkata had opportunities to control crucial moments but failed to execute fundamental box-outs, allowing the opponent to capitalize at pivotal times. That type of breakdown in the fundamentals is what makes a team vulnerable, even when individual players are performing well elsewhere. It's clear that there are multiple layers of concern for the Celtics. Shooting struggles have been pronounced, and this game highlighted them. Jaylen Brown, normally a reliable option from beyond the arc, went 0 for 9, which is a reminder that even elite players can hit slumps, and the team needs to be ready to compensate. Other players, who aren't typically dependable three-point shooters, were forced into taking shots, and the result was predictably inefficient. That lack of spacing on the floor, coupled with the inability to hit shots consistently, puts immense pressure on playmakers and drives defensive mismatches. Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, and others were tasked with creating in a scenario where the floor spacing didn't support them, making their jobs almost impossible. When you can't hit shots, defensive rotations become compromised, and that leads to easy points for the opponent, more fouls, and a breakdown in rhythm. The Celtics' lineup experimentation, while understandable, has also exposed vulnerabilities. Rotating between Nimishkata, Tillman, Garza, and others has not solved the core issues of rebounding, spacing, or defensive execution. You can see Coach Joe MAZZULLA trying to find answers on the fly, but even the most strategic substitutions cannot fully compensate for weaknesses in fundamental skills. When the team is struggling to rebound, missing shots, and committing costly turnovers, the margin for error is non-existent. Individual brilliance, like Jaylen Brown's 36 points, 13 of 28 shooting, including 10 of 11 from the line, can keep the team competitive, but it cannot mask systemic problems over the long haul. Even when bench contributions come in, like Anthony Simons scoring 15 points, the efficiency isn't there, and reliance on spot production cannot replace a cohesive, reliable system. Watching the game, it's clear that Boston's rebounding issues are not new, and they continue to be exposed against teams with size and strength. While wins against teams like the Cavaliers or the Pelicans may have masked these weaknesses temporarily, a team like the Jazz punishes those gaps ruthlessly. In addition, the Celtics' three-point shooting slump only magnifies defensive and rebounding problems. Missing 40 shots from beyond the arc creates long rebounds, open fast break opportunities, and chaos in defensive rotations. The team's inability to execute in transition, cover spacing adequately, and maintain fundamental positioning leads to unnecessary fouls and forced errors. Even in critical moments, when a foul could have altered the final possession, it's clear that the loss cannot be attributed to a single missed call. Boston's overall execution throughout the game created the circumstances that allowed the Jazz to take control. Missing free throws, giving up offensive rebounds, poor defensive positioning, and turnover inefficiencies all combined to create a loss that is frustrating precisely because it was avoidable. This isn't just about the scoreboard. It's about the type of team Boston wants to be. Effort and intensity were evident at times, but the lack of consistent execution exposes structural weaknesses that must be addressed before this roster can be considered a championship-caliber unit. Players like Nimishkata illustrate both potential and concern. Early contributions and solid plus-minus numbers are overshadowed by struggles with fundamentals, including weak base, positioning, and inability to secure key rebounds. Rebounding requires strength, positioning, and anticipation, and failure to execute these basics under pressure compromises the team's defensive and offensive balance. It is one thing to be athletic and mobile, but without the foundational skills to hold position and box out effectively, opportunities are lost at critical junctures. Ultimately, this game served as a stark reminder that the Celtics are still a work in progress. Even strong individual performances cannot overcome persistent weaknesses in rebounding, shooting efficiency, defensive positioning, and execution. The combination of poor shot selection, inadequate spacing, and lineup experimentation adds layers of difficulty in responding to in-game challenges. When multiple players struggle from the floor, the team lacks the isolation play and creative flexibility to carry them through tough stretches, leaving players like Jaylen Brown with the burden of keeping the team competitive. This pattern underscores the importance of addressing systemic issues rather than relying solely on individual heroics. Picking up from where we left off, it's impossible to ignore how the Celtics' shooting struggles affected every facet of the game. When your perimeter shots aren't falling, your defense suffers because long rebounds become a free pass for opponents to push in transition. It's a ripple effect. Missed threes force the team into constant scrambling, which not only tires players physically but also mentally, because every possession requires extra attention to rotations and closeouts. The Jazz capitalized on that, running off misses, finding open lanes, and getting easy points in ways that Boston simply could not counter. When the Celtics cannot hit shots consistently, even minor mistakes are magnified. Defensive rotations lag, help defense comes too late, and mismatches appear in ways that would not exist if the team were hitting at least a respectable percentage from beyond the arc. Jaylen Brown carried the load as best he could. 36 points is a standout effort, particularly when you consider the lack of support around him. He got to the line 11 times and converted 10, which is tremendous efficiency in isolation. But even his brilliance was not enough to compensate for systematic breakdowns. Peyton Pritchard had moments of positive impact as well, scoring efficiently when driving into the paint and creating for teammates. But overall, the floor spacing and shot selection left him with limited options. When multiple players are struggling, the pressure on your playmakers escalates, and mistakes become more frequent. The Celtics' offense felt congested at times, a direct result of poor spacing from missed threes and lineups that lacked reliable shooters on the perimeter. Lineup experimentation continues to be a double-edged sword. Coach MAZZULLA is trying to identify combinations that can succeed in both offense and defense, but the roster simply does not have enough players who can do both effectively. Switching between Nimishkata, Garza, Tillman, and Boucher highlights the ongoing challenge. Some players provide energy, some provide size, but few provide consistent shooting and rebounding. The result is that when the team needs a secure option in a crunch, the ball has to go to one of the small number of players who can execute under pressure, and that predictability makes defensive adjustments easier for opponents. It's not a lack of effort from the players. It's a structural issue with the roster composition. Rebounding, again, was a central flaw. Boston's bigs failed to consistently control the glass, which gave the Jazz additional scoring opportunities. Nimishkata, in particular, struggled in crucial moments, being pushed off position on critical rebounds that could have extended possessions or even altered the final outcome. Box-out fundamentals, getting low, establishing a solid base, and using body positioning effectively were not executed reliably. It's a skill that might seem simple, but has enormous consequences when neglected. When you combine rebounding deficiencies with poor shooting, the opponent gets more chances, and the Celtics are forced to expend more energy chasing balls, contesting fast break points, and scrambling to recover. This type of wear accumulates over the course of a game and can determine who controls momentum. The Celtics' defensive scheme also suffered because of poor shot making. When perimeter shots miss, defenders have to adjust quickly, cover long rebounds, and close out on shooters who are already in rhythm. That creates vulnerability in help-side defense and often leads to fouls as players overcommit to prevent easy baskets. The Jazz took advantage of this repeatedly, scoring in transition and off extra possessions, exposing the Celtics' lack of depth and defensive cohesion. Even moments of individual defensive brilliance were insufficient because the team could not maintain structure across all positions. Defensive execution at this level requires a full team commitment, precise rotations, and communication, and the shooting slump directly undermined those elements. Another concern is the lack of reliable isolation play. When the team struggles collectively, someone needs to create consistently. Jaylen Brown can do it, and he has done it at times, but relying on one player for creation night after night is unsustainable. The bench contributions were intermittent. Anthony Simons scored points, but did not provide the efficiency needed to keep the team competitive consistently. Derek White had moments of solid playmaking, but again, with limited shooting around him, he faced crowded defenses and had fewer options to exploit. The Celtics' ability to generate offense in difficult situations is constrained by a combination of inconsistent shooters, inefficient spacing, and the absence of true secondary creators who can pick up the slack when the stars are struggling. Foul management also emerged as a key issue. Throughout the game, unnecessary fouls disrupted rhythm and gave the opponent easy points. Players were caught out of position, either trying to recover from missed rotations or overcompensating on defense. Even when a foul call might have altered a specific possession late in the game, the broader issue remains that the team's defensive lapses created opportunities for the Jazz long before the clock wound down. The combination of defensive inefficiency, rebounding failures, and turnover mismanagement formed a perfect storm that ultimately determined the outcome, not a single missed call or isolated event. The broader pattern for the Celtics is clear. Shooting slumps, poor spacing, rebounding weaknesses, and inconsistent execution on both ends create vulnerabilities that can be exploited by any competent opponent. Individual heroics provide temporary relief, but cannot sustain victories against strong teams consistently. The roster needs balance between shooting, playmaking, and defensive reliability to succeed at the highest level, and until those gaps are addressed, the team will continue to face these frustrating outcomes. But before we continue, please remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest news about the Boston Celtics. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. The Boston Celtics are stirring up the rumor mill once again. Sources suggest that Joe MAZZULLA has officially taken full control of the team's destiny, a bold move that comes with immediate ripple effects throughout the organization. The front office reportedly made a swift decision to part ways with a key assistant coach, signaling that the Celtics are looking to reshape the very DNA of their game. The whispers in the corridors of TD Garden hint at something bigger. A new defensive mastermind is allegedly joining the ranks, someone insiders are calling a defensive genius. While no official announcement has been made, Chatter among players and staff suggests this is not your typical coaching shuffle. This could be a calculated gamble to vault Boston back in a championship contention. MAZZULLA, known for his cerebral approach and adaptability, seems determined to stamp his vision across every facet of the team. The genius in question reportedly has a track record of turning middling defenses into top-tier units, raising eyebrows around the league. Imagine the Celtics, already a storied franchise, suddenly locking down opponents with schemes that feel almost preternatural. Fans on social media are already buzzing, speculating about which moves and rotations might change, and whether MAZZULLA's newfound authority will spark a mid-season transformation. Of course, with all rumors, caution is advised, but the sense of anticipation is palpable. Could this be the strategic shakeup that finally pushes Boston past its Eastern Conference rivals? Or is it just another tease in the endless carousel of coaching intrigue? One thing is clear. The Celtics are sending a message, loud and clear, that Joe Mazzulla's vision is now unfiltered, and a new defensive brain is ready to make an immediate impact. As whispers grow into speculation, the NBA world watches closely, wondering if Boston's next chapter will be defined by genius-level defense and a coach unafraid to take the reins completely. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Boston Celtics, please subscribe to our channel and give the video a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.